Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question has to do with life coaching. And actually there are many questions here that I've received about this construct of life coaching and how it relates to counseling. Is life coaching a scam? Should I become a life coach or should I become a counselor? What can I expect to get from life coaching? Is it a substitute for counseling? So really a lot of different questions I've received about the integrity of life coaching and how it compares to mental health counseling and related professions like social work and psychology. So when we talk about life coaching, one of the difficulties here is there's no real single definition for this construct. Life coaching is an unregulated field. So anyone, with or without training, can go out at any time and open up a life coaching business, as long as they're in line with other applicable laws. But there are no laws I'm aware of that regulate life coaching. Counseling, of course, is regulated. Counselors, at some point, we would hope, achieve the level of licensure, and that's the level where they can bill insurance companies and they have other certain rights and privileges like the ability to diagnose and things like that. So counseling and other related professions are regulated. People go through certain steps like education and testing and hours postgraduate under supervision to make sure that they reach a level of competency. None of those safeguards exist in life coaching. Now, talking about this question, is life coaching a scam? Well, just because something's not regulated doesn't automatically make it a scam. It certainly makes it much more vulnerable to be a scam in any particular instance. But I've seen a lot of life coaches that do a reasonably good job, and many of them already have licensure as a mental health professional. So for instance, somebody's a licensed professional counselor and they see some opportunities to work with maybe executives at a local company. They're looking for life coaching or executive coaching, and they're very similar, those two constructs. There's a lot of different words that are put in front of the word coaching. And they see this opportunity and they say, well, I'm going to add life coaching as one of my abilities. So they're already licensed as a counselor, they add the life coaching, and they incorporate what they know as a counselor into that. So yes, they can be reasonably effective at coaching in this way. I get more worried when I see individuals who have no training in coaching or counseling or anything, just come out and say that they're a coach, or they go to one of these weekend seminars. So they spend a few hours learning about, I guess, different aspects of coaching, and then they immediately go into business and they try to give people advice. This, I think, is worrisome, this trend. And to answer the question about, is life coaching a substitute for counseling, this is kind of tied in with not being regulated. Sometimes life coaches attempt to do the work of counselors. People bring up concerns about depression, anxiety, OCD, substance use problems, personality disorders. And the life coaches don't have the training to know, to refer necessarily, and they certainly don't have the training to deliver treatment, but sometimes they will attempt to anyway. Now, in most areas, this is illegal. This is wandering into an area that has practice protection, which in most places counselors do, and the other related fields do as well. So it's not a substitute for counseling. It's a type of service that some people could use under certain circumstances, but it has nothing to do with helping people with mental health symptoms. A very important distinction between counseling and life coaching. So this also answers the question about career choice. Should somebody choose to become a counselor or other type of mental health clinician or a life coach? Really, they're completely different professions with completely different types of work being done, and the educational level is quite a bit different. Again, to be a life coach, it could be a weekend seminar. I've seen trainings as short as 3 hours. To be a mental health counselor, it's usually about 3 years, and then after graduating from a master's program, there is another 2, sometimes up to 4 years of postgraduate work to get a license. So a lot different 3 years compared to 3 hours, and then all the other requirements and the tests. Counseling is much more difficult, and I think also a much more established career path. Of course, I'm going to be biased on the side of counseling because I am a counselor, that would make sense. But I think even somebody looking from a relatively neutral perspective would have to see there are distinct differences between the counseling profession and life coaching. So as I mentioned, I have a lot of concerns about the life coaching industry, not with the professionals that become life coaches, but with people that have minimal training and really don't seem to have a firm understanding of what services they're providing. If you're a life coach and you know what services you provide, they don't conflict with anything that's regulated and they don't hurt people, that's one thing. But if we look at a lot of life coaches out there, unfortunately there are a number of unscrupulous individuals we see out there. And you can see these people, of course, in real life. You can see them on their websites, on the internet. And we see a lot of murky, fuliginous goals, right? We see goals like learning how to reflect, learning how to organize, to reach your full potential, how to realize what your potential even is in the first place, how to influence other people. These goals really don't seem concrete. This doesn't really seem like a service to me that makes a lot of sense. We see expressions like they lend positive support. I didn't know there was such a thing as negative support, but I guess there could be. Helping people find their inner self, unlock their hidden self. I didn't know the hidden self was lost or locked up, but I guess that can happen too. Again, I'm not really sure these are real goals. They just seem like all these buzzwords that are kind of linked together. And if you look at some of them, they actually have kind of a theme, like being persuasive, influential, moving people their obstacles out of your way, getting what you deserve, and realizing that you're special and unique. If you look at all these different goals, they really line up with narcissism pretty solidly. So for some life coaches anyway, again, not all of them, perhaps some are just helping people to unlock their inner narcissist. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a very positive goal. And we see, of course, on the internet, people type a lot of different things, even when they're trying to advertise their business, so the language might not always be precise. But one of the terms I've seen over and over, and it really never ceases to amaze me, is the expression, harness the power. And you can see this expression, and then almost anything can come after it. Harness the power of your potential. Well, that doesn't seem so bad. Harness the power of civilization. I don't even know what that means. Harness the power of the universe, or harness the energy of the universe. Well, that's a lot of energy. What would you do with all that energy? I guess it would help you move people out of your way that were obstacles or whatever. So there's a lot of harnessing of power. And you see some that seem a little more grounded, like harnessing the power of mindfulness. I saw one that was harnessing the power of now, which I guess means mindfulness. I don't know. But I can see what they're saying. But if you look at the word harness, what harness really means is to control. So it seems like a lot of this field, life coaching, is about controlling the power of different aspects of your life. So again, maybe not a really clear or well-articulated goal. And it does seem just like a bunch of words put together. I don't really know always what this means. Now I know that counselors, just like life coaches on occasion, kind of use language that's really expressive and tries to connect with an emotional aspect, and sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense to people. It's not concrete or clear. But I sense this happens a little bit more with life coaching than we see in mental health counseling. So the last point I'll cover here with life coaching is kind of the barrier to entry, which I mentioned is fairly low. We see that the training programs can be just a few $100s and be a few hours long. And there's no real certification that I could see that was really held to any standard that's well accepted. There are different agencies that certify, but I really couldn't find out a lot about them. And of course we know there's no licensure, so the certification I don't think would be too relevant, but it's an attempt to make that industry more accountable and more competent, and I can appreciate that. If we look at the amount of money that life coaches charge, you might think, well, counseling is a profession that requires a lot of education, a lot of training, so counselors probably bill more. But actually life coaches, the rates range from $100 to $1,000 an hour, and probably some that are more. So we see a lot of variability there, and again, without a clear service, it's whatever you want it to be. It's, in a sense, renting a friend who can be supportive. I don't know. I don't know if I really see a lot of value in life coaching for a lot of people, but I don't know. Some people, they might get something from it. They may feel like they need that supportive voice to keep them going, and they don't want to use a mental health counselor for that. So I guess it has a place. Again, I'm not against the whole industry. I just have concerns that it's very easy to get in, and it's unregulated, and it's not always clear what they do. I've covered the elements of competence pretty, I think, well in this video, about my feelings anyway, about the differences between counseling and life coaching, but I haven't covered maturity. And I think it's worth just spending a second and talking about how it's not just what counselors know from a textbook. It's not just the ability to understand certain constructs that makes a counselor effective. There's also a maturity and transformational component to it. And I'm not talking necessarily about a more global maturity, like general maturity as people get older and understand more about life, which is what's happened sometimes. It's more a specific maturity growing into, developing into the person of a counselor. That takes time. Knowledge is a part of that, but there's a transformational element, as I indicated, and it's really more than just reading from books and understanding theories and all that stuff. You simply can't get that in a 3-hour training. So if somebody is not effective at being a life coach and they go through a 3-hour training, it's hard to see how at the end of that they would be effective. And honestly, it's hard to see how they'd be effective even if it was 2 weeks of training or a month of training. That doesn't leave enough time to mature. Now again, the objective of a life coach, even though it's not really clear to me, it's different than counseling, so maybe that maturation aspect isn't as important. But I worry about that. I worry about how that part gets lost sometimes when people compare counseling and life coaching in a lot of related professions. Competence and maturity both have a place. I hope you found this description of life coaching versus counseling to be interesting. Thanks for watching.